Good afternoon and welcome back to PWT News with your host, Mosey Long. And today on Lest We Forget History, we're going to be talking about past and current housing problems within the great US of A. History and housing repeats itself when government promises collapse. Today, we're looking at America's long, complicated history with affordable housing and how that history echoes loudly today as political leaders refuse to sign modern housing bills. To understand the present, we have to revisit the past. And the past tells us stories of promises made, promises broken, and communities left waiting. In the early 20th century, cities first recognized that housing wasn't just shelter, it was stability. Public housing initiatives emerged because urban populations were exploding and families needed dignified places to live. These programs were imperfect, but they were a start. Then came the Federal Housing Administration in the 1930s. It revolutionized ownership by offering mortgage insurance, but it also institutionalized discrimination. Minority families were routinely denied the same opportunities. Housing policy became a mirror of America's inequalities. After World War II, the GI Bill promised veterans a pathway to ownership, and it delivered, but mostly for white veterans. Minority veterans faced redlining, loan denials, and systemic exclusion. This dream of ownership was not equally shared. The civil rights movement of the 1960s forced the nation to confront housing discrimination head on. Activists demanded equal access and discrimination in housing. It was a landmark victory, but enforcement was inconsistent and inequalities persisted. In the 1970s, community development block grants empowered local governments to build and rehabilitate affordable housing. This was one of the first major shifts toward community-driven solution. By the 1980s, nonprofit housing organizations stepped in, building trust where government programs had failed. They created homes, not just units. They listened to communities. They filled gaps left by policy failures. The Tax Reform Act introduced incentives for developers to build affordable housing, a rare moment when tax policy aligned with social need. But even then, loopholes allowed investors to benefit more than families. The 2000s brought a full-blown affordable housing crisis. Prices soared, aligned, wages stagnated, activism surged. Families were squeezed out of cities they had lived in for generations. Then came the Great Recession. Millions lost their homes. Foreclosures skyrocketed. Housing insecurity became a national emergency. Policymakers scrambled to respond, but many reforms came too late. In recent years, new movements emerged. Tiny houses, housing first homelessness strategies, sustainable building practices, 3D printing houses, tech-driven affordability solutions. All of those innovations show that America can solve housing when leadership chooses to. And that brings us to today, when a modern leader, Prez, as our audience knows him, refuses to sign a housing bill is not just a political disagreement. It's part of a century-long pattern of stalled progress, delayed action, and communities left waiting for relief. History shows us that affordable housing has never been a partisan luxury. It has always been a national necessity. And every time leadership fails to act, the burden falls on families, veterans, seniors, and children. The same groups who have been fighting for housing stability for over 100 years. This is, lest we forget, historical, reminding us that today's decisions are never isolated. They are echoes of our past, and the past is calling for better and more loudly. Stay alert, stay awake, do something. Just don't sit there and wring your hands. Oh my, oh my. Get something done. Leave a ripple behind. This is Mosey along, and come along wishing you a very cool weekend if it's at all possible.